who we can expect to see out there. You know, Ben Johnson talked about how he was going to make a decision based on the joint practices yesterday as to what to do Saturday night. I don't necessarily know that we're much closer to answers. What do you think?
Yeah, I heard you guys discussing that, and and you mentioned that Zach Taylor said his starters will not play, which I think is a decent indication that the Bears will probably do the same. I don't. I think that they got a lot of good work from Caleb Williams. Now it's interesting, right? Because it's the question of did you get good work or just work, right? Because as you guys read, the Bears struggled. The offense struggled at the end of practice yesterday, especially in the 2-minute drill. So do you see that and think, shoot, we need to give these guys some real game reps? But if they did, they're going against the Bengals backup. So how valuable is that going to be? So my inclination is that the starters still don't play based on just what we know about Ben Johnson and how much they value what they did yesterday. Remember, they'll be doing this again next week in Nashville against the Titans, so they'll get some more meaningful reps against another team. To me, the biggest question is if we think the starters are not going to be out there, what do you do with Braxton Jones?
Right.
Because you could sit there and say, hey, he needs reps, he needs game reps, he needs to show us that he can solidify this position. On the flip side, you don't want him to get hurt. So I think that's going to be a really fascinating thing to watch on Saturday night is the decision with him. Other things, you could see Dylan Thieneman maybe gain a series or two, maybe some of the newer guys on defense like a Neville Gallimore or Devin Bush just to continue to get them, in sync with what Dennis Allen wants. But yeah, I would not be surprised if most of the starters sit out. But again, if Ben was so unhappy with how practice ended that he's like, you know what, offense, I need a series from you, then he could do that as well.
It's crazy, Kevin, because we could be looking at this game depending on what Ben decides and be like, oh, but look who was playing left tackle in this game, and understand that might be an indication of who's not being considered to be the first string left tackle when the season starts.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Braxton sits, I think that tells you obviously that they feel really good about what he did yesterday, where he's at health wise, and they want to kind of protect him. And then the other question is then what do they do with Krana Magaji and Jedrick Wills? How many reps are they going to get at left or right? Ben said last week they got to figure out which of those guys, how they can do as swing tackles. How could they do on the right side? The thing with Theo Benedict is, like, to me, he's always been on the 53. Like, I haven't batted an eye there, because he can play both sides. So I think that they have to now figure out how comfortable are they with the other two in terms of the tackle spots. I don't know if they have room to keep both. Which if it's a competition, which one stays? You got the draft. Amagaji was Ryan Poles' draft pick. Jedrick Wills was a top 10 pick, so that will be another big week for those two in terms of the reps they get. And, Theo Benedict, as you guys saw, he gave up a sack late in practice yesterday. And I think they probably want to give him more left tackle reps because until we know when Ozzie Tribillo is ready to go, they have to decide if Braxton's a starter, who's his backup. Is it Theo Benedict? Is it Crown Amagaji? Is it Jedrick Wills? So you still have some questions to answer, certainly at left and right and the backup right tackle that you can maybe get some more clarity from tomorrow night.
Kevin, how much did you get from the 2-minute drill in some of the questions that you just asked and mentioned right now?
Yeah, it was, I'll say this, I think it was probably the worst 2-minute drill we've seen from the Bears offense all summer.
Ooh.
And I say that also noting that was not too far from the way the 2-minute drill looked like nearly every practice last summer. Like, so there's two sides to that coin, right? Like, it didn't go well yesterday, but it's been pretty good this summer. So now you can take it a step further and say, well, now they finally played a real defense that doesn't know what, and look what happened. Or you could say, well, you know what? We've got more tape from July and August that tells us more. And this was a great, to use a Kevin Warren term, a great learning opportunity for the first team offense to figure out, again, the Miles Murphy sack. on the second drive, really put them behind the sticks. Caleb Williams told us after practice that, he knew he held on to the ball a little too long on the next play. He really just wanted to kind of get a check down and just kind of get them in a little bit more of a comfortable space. And on the opening drive, I mean, my biggest takeaway from all of practice, I stayed on the side of the Bears offense versus Bengals defense, was Dexter Lawrence was just a monster. Like, he was everywhere. And, the Bears are obviously going to face some really good interior defensive linemen. And that gave them some, again, learning opportunities from what they faced with Dexter Lawrence, who kind of wrecked the first 2-minute drive. So I think there was probably a ton for Ben to go through on tape with that first team offense. But I'm not really panicking as much because it has generally been good in camp. And certainly, you talk about game tape, we all saw what that 2-minute drill looked like last year, which is what's most important.
Kevin Fishbain is the senior writer at The Athletic, covering the Bears, joining us here on Rahimi, Harris, and Grote, a day before the Bears take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe they'll first one to 50 wins. Who knows how this is going to play out, Kevin? I am curious, based on what you've seen over now a season plus from Ben Johnson, do you think he'd just prefer to say, hey, my starters on offense do not play in the preseason? Like, if they do not play tomorrow and then they have a decent showing against the Titans next week, do you think there's a real possibility, and how likely do you think it is the starters on offense just don't play in the preseason?
Yeah, Marshall, he had a great quote last week before the Browns game, which was along the lines of, I don't need to see Caleb Williams in the preseason. Like, maybe he wants to here and there, but he doesn't need to. Like, he knows what his quarterback can do. He knows where his quarterback needs to get better. He said that's not something he needs to see. Now, he left the door open that he could decide, I'd like to see a series. I think I might have told you guys last week, I was like, I could see the benefit in just having one series of downs, even if he hands it off every time, just to make sure everyone in and out of the huddle and the communication. But they kind of got through that last year. So, yeah, I think if it's up to Ben Johnson, his ideal world, I think these guys are not going out there. He's not putting them in another position where they could end up getting hurt. Look, we've gone through this year after year after year with coaching philosophies. Shoot, I remember Matt Nagy got absolutely skewered because he decided to rest the whole offense in the preseason. I want to say it was summer 2019, and then we all saw what happened in 2019. And I went back and forth in that because, how many times in November when a team is 4-6 do we say, well, if they played more in the preseason? To the flip side is, if a team is 7-2, how often do we say, well, I mean, gosh, because they got all those preseason reps? Like, I don't know how strong that correlation is to how the thing actually looks when it's all said and done. So I'm guessing it could just come down to, we know that Ben Johnson's comfortable evaluating what he sees the joint practices, and if he doesn't have to put those guys out there, then he would probably prefer that.
Oh, let's revisit this. Let's revisit the 2018 and 19 history. Since we did it, we went there. Now, you recall, Kevin, that the Bears offense was already having trouble scoring touchdowns in the red zone and had to resort to a bunch of Santa sleigh-like plays. Yes, that yes, we were already seeing
fun times.
We were already seeing flaws, and in the preseason game with the double doink, Matt Nagy had already abandoned the run game. Tariq Cohen had only 4 touches in that game. And we got all this, it's only the preseason talk. And that's when Mitch Trubisky was really supposed to come online and read the field, correct?
Oh, yeah. We were told a lot of things that summer.
So then I feel like Matt Nagy thought that deception, aka when he didn't talk about personnel because personnel was schemed to him, that he thought he was like outthinking everybody and hiding what he thought was probably a flawed team in the preseason, only to deal with the tab being due in the regular season. That's my harebrained theory about it all.
Listen, I'm all for harebrained theories. Give me all the conspiracies.
Yes.
I'll welcome all of it. I just, the other side of that too, Layla, is maybe he didn't play them in the preseason because, maybe they were just bad.
They were
always going to be, they were always going to be bad.
I think he thought he was protecting his team. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard, you go back even further. I remember 2014, they went to Seattle in the preseason and just got bludgeoned. And this was back in the day when the starters, the old days, you'd play in the third quarter. And I remember being like, I don't know, guys, it's just the preseason. Remember, this was the second highest scoring team in football last year. They're bringing everybody back. And then they were obviously awful. And there were some rumblings that people walked out of Seattle being like, uh-oh, maybe we got some issues. But again, those were also the days the starters played a lot more.
Boom goes the proverbial dynamite. The thing is,
Or
I'm
did.
not. Well, yes. Well, the reason I said goes is in present tense is because I'm flipping the script right now, Kevin. Y'all are over here talking about offense. I'm not concerned about the offense. What I am concerned about, though, Kevin, is this defense. Let's start with. I put a moratorium on the presumed starting nickel if he was to be healthy. So I'm not going to ask you about that. What I am going to ask you about is who is the guy who's going to play that role as you can see it and as guys get healthier and understanding that the back end of the defense is also not going to be at full strength when the season starts.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yesterday was Malik Muhammad. And as I told you guys, I didn't watch the defense closely. I was on the other field, but from what I've heard and some of the highlights I saw, it seems like the defense did a decent job holding their own against a really good offense. But yeah, are you comfortable with the rookie in that position in week one? Jalen Jones was there, but still not practicing. He was the one taking the one nickel reps at the beginning of camp. Has he just missed too much time? And Malik Muhammad is kind of, taking that spot. If Jalen Jones comes back on Tuesday, can he play on Saturday and prove that he should get the spot? Um, I think I brought up this theory a week or two ago, but I don't think it's going to work out. Like if they really like Xavier Woods at safety, do they move Cam Lewis back to nickel? But I don't really haven't seen Cam Lewis at nickel in a while, so I don't think they do that. Not a lot of great answers, Marshall, is kind of the TLDR of that, because in a dream world, Malik Muhammad, who was an outstanding player in college, and a lot of draft analysts thought the Bears got a really good value with him in the fourth round, steps in and plays really well. And he's had some really nice moments in camp playing a new position for him in that slot corner role. But yeah, it's a tough position to play. But yeah, I mean, right now, based on what we've seen, if they had a regular season game tomorrow, it'd be the rookie right there at the slot corner. You got the rookie at safety. So, you can, this defense has still got plenty of question marks.
I'm going to ask a very preseason question, and I
love
want you
preseason
two
questions.
to join me. Are we underrating Cam Lewis?
Maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, look, the guy started for the Bills in the playoffs last year. So, he was in place of somebody, but he was still good enough for them to trust him in that moment. He started a few games for Buffalo, and when the Bears signed him, the word from folks in the Bills was like, "Hey, you guys got a pretty good one here. He's versatile, good locker room guy, can do a bunch of different things for you, can do special teams." So I'm very curious to see, and I'll say this too about, and this is speaking just about Cam Lewis taking over for Kobe Bryant. Obviously, there's no good time for a guy of that caliber to get hurt. But Cam Lewis is going to end up having like 3 full weeks of practice in that spot, working that communication with Dylan Thieneman, working with Dennis Allen, understanding everything he needs to do before he's got to play a regular season game, which should help him as he fills in. Big shoes to fill, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a little bit of an underrated signing, and we'll see how he holds up there as a starter. Again, he might have to start the whole season.
And I know that's a scary thought, but Kevin, I know he it's the preseason, and I know that he wasn't intended to be put in this role, but even in his press conference availability, sure seemed capable. When he talked about his understanding of the defense, what the roles were, and just you could see that football IQ pop even in the press conference availabilities that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to be pretty football smart to do what he's done, which was spend your first week or two at camp at nickel and then switch to safety, and also know everything you got to do on special teams. And guy's been in the league for 4 or 5 years, played on some really good Buffalo Bills teams, knows what it means, what it takes to be a winner and be a contender, started some really important games for them. So yeah, I think that it was, there are drop-offs. There's always going to be that big drop off. It is a big drop off from Kobe Bryant. But you got at least like at that position too. so much of it is just being in the right spot.
Yes.
And not giving up the big play, and not just having that, that mental error in the back end. And you like to think the Bears feel comfortable that he at least will, maybe he's not the physical player Corey Bryant is, but at least he's always going to be in the right spot is the hope.
Okay, so we're getting into the nitty gritty here because there's only 2 preseason games left, and we're getting awfully close to the start of the regular season. What I want to know, Kevin, is how many spots do you think are up for grabs in the front 4 right now? And how likely is it they go with all people they have right now as opposed to waiting to see who comes off some of these other rosters at the end of it?
Yeah, it's interesting, Marshall. I mean, I will open the door to somebody could get cut a week from Sunday. That's a shocker, and the Bears jump at them, right? Or next Saturday, somebody's available via trade they never considered. So let's leave the door open for that. But I think that they go with what they went with last year, and they feel good about Montez Sweat being fully healthy this offseason. They feel really good about the gains Austin Booker's made. They like that they can bring Dio Dangbo and move him inside on these passing downs, and he's been healthy all summer long. So, they have high hopes about Gervon Dexter being a contract year for him if Grady Jarrett stays healthy. Look at what I'm selling you guys on right here. is again, and I've said this, like, the way I describe it, you can sit there and nod your head and go, okay, you bring in Neville Gallimore. He's been in the league for a while. Vandenberg's had a really nice summer, and he can step in on passing downs and do some things for you. Contavious Street's a veteran. Okay, maybe we got something here. And then you can sit there and be like, well, wait a second. You brought back the same group that was, 25th in the league in pressure percentage or whatever it was in the bottom third. So, but I do think that barring some kind of surprising name, and again, we know Ryan Poles will look at everything. I expect it to be, Sweat, Dexter, Jarrett, and Booker out there in week 1 against Carolina.
Yeah, I also really selfishly hope that Neville Gallimore has a great season because he's entertaining, and he had a nice game his last time out, so I'm hoping that continues. Kevin, we appreciate you taking the time, fresh off of your plane ride back from Cincinnati.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, guys. Take care.